When you think of Vlad the Impaler, you are reminded of one of the most savage killers and barbaric leaders of all time. Vlad Tepes was responsible for creating forests of impaled bodies, and it's said he even drank the blood of his enemies. But is there more to the story? Reviled in most of the world, yet revered in Romania, Vlad is honoured as a national hero by many. He's seen as a man who stood up to the Ottomans and defended his country by any means necessary. Vlad was the son of Dracul, king of Wallachia, and as a prince, he likely had a comfortable, satisfactory life. Because of this, he never would have been prepared for the life of torture and imprisonment his future held. His father was invited to talk with Sultan Murad II of the Ottoman Empire under the guise of a diplomatic meeting. The Ottomans captured them and stated that Vlad's father, Vlad Dracul, could only leave if he left behind his two sons. After having been abandoned by his father, Vlad was taken by the Ottomans. They taught him about science, philosophy, and the skills of a warrior. But his life there wasn't easy. He was still a prisoner, and like most prisoners, he wasn't free from torture. It's possible that while he was there, he saw the execution methods used by the Ottomans, and that this is where he learnt of impalement. His experience there kindled a deep hatred for the Ottomans, and he would grow up to use everything they taught him to make their lives a living hell. One example of this is when diplomats from the Ottoman Empire refused to remove their hats. This was a sign of disrespect, but they assured Vlad that this was simply a part of their religion, and that they meant no offence. Vlad complimented them on their devotion to their religion, and then guaranteed them that their hats would always remain on their heads by nailing them into their skulls. Eventually Vlad was released, and at some point, through internal conflict, he managed to take back the throne of Wallachia while being allied with the Ottomans. The Ottomans felt comfortable with him on the throne, but he would soon betray them. He is celebrated as a national hero in Romania for his battles with the Ottomans. He killed thousands of them, reportedly in some of the most brutal ways imaginable, but also defended his country from a much larger army. Vlad had 10,000 men. The Ottomans had 150,000 men. In this situation, Vlad is supposed to lose. But Vlad was a genius of psychological warfare. While travelling to meet Vlad's army, the Ottomans came across a forest of bodies, impaled on spikes. They were so terrified by the sight that they left in order to avoid facing what they described as a demon. Vlad the Impaler is now famous for using stakes in order to execute his victims and inspire fear in his enemies. But stories also betray that he engaged in this not just for pragmatism, but for fun. Reportedly, Vlad once sat in a field of impaled bodies and ate dinner. People have claimed that he drank blood out of a goblet and dipped bread in blood. However, there isn't any proof of this, and may have simply been fabricated. After he became ruler of Wallachia, he had trouble with Transylvanian Saxons, who supported allies of Vlad the Impaler's opponents. He raided their villages, and then executed the Anglo-Saxons by impaling thousands of them on spikes. The spike would normally be inserted through some part of the person's bottom, and then they would be left to writhe in pain, slowly sinking down the spike until death, which would normally arrive after 3 days. There are two possible reasons he impaled people, and either or both could be true. Impaling people was an absurdly effective way of spreading fear. In terms of psychological warfare, it's a first-class tactic. This has shown how he deflected the Ottoman invasion through fear, and also how low the crime rate was in his country. An expensive golden bowl was placed in public, and left in order to test whether his measures to deter crime were effective. the bowl was never moved. So one reason he impaled people could simply be pragmatism. The Ottomans also impaled people, and so if Vlad hadn't used this method, perhaps they would have invaded and used the method on his own men. Vlad is also reported to be a sadistic and twisted man who lusted for blood and would even drink it. It's possible he simply enjoyed impaling people and never even thought about its tactical uses. Or it could have been both. He was pragmatic and depraved. So, was Vlad a hero for defending his nation, or a villain for his barbaric acts?